2005 Italian center-left primary election. The 2005 Italian center-left primary election determined the leader of the coalition, the Union, who will stand as common candidate for the office of Prime Minister in the subsequent general election, which took place on 9–10 April 2006. It was won with 74% of the votes by Romano Prodi. Historical background: as of 2005, the coalition was assumed to be led by Romano Prodi. However, he called for a primary election in order to gain an official leadership. Primary elections were a novelty in Italian politics, as the proportional system in place until the early 1990s was supposed to present sufficient variety to electors. With the new majoritarian electoral system, two clear blocs emerged since 1996. Primary elections had never been held on a national level before in Italy, and only once at a regional level, in Apulia. In that occasion, Nisci Vendola, a communist and gay Catholic, became the candidate for the center-left coalition in a region reputed. The institute of primary election came under criticism from some center-left moderates, as in their opinion it had produced a useless candidate doomed to failure. However, Vendola's victory against the incumbent governor and center-right candidate Raffaele Fitto, a much more conventional and moderate young man, vindicated the primary elections in the internal argumentations of the Union. Candidates. When the primary elections were first proposed, they were mostly meant as a plebiscite for Romano Prodi, since there were no other candidates to the leadership of the coalition. The secretary of the Communist or Foundation Party, Fausto Bertinotti, then announced he would run for the leadership, even if only to act as a symbolic candidate, to avoid a one-candidate election. After some time, more candidates were presented. The primary election may have been foreseen an easy win for Prodi, with the other candidates running mostly to measure their strengths in the coalition, and they often talked about reaching a certain percentage rather than winning. However, there were rumors of supporters of the House of Freedoms trying to participate in the elections and vote in favor of Clement Mastella, reputed to be the least competent of the candidates and the least likely to win against Berlusconi, other than the most centrist. Other rumors indicated such fake left-wing voters would vote for Bertinotti because his leadership would likely lose any. Results. The primary election had been held nationwide on 16 October 2005 from 8 to 10 p.m. The primary election was open to all Italian citizens who were at least 18 during the following general election, plus regular immigrants who have lived in Italy for 3 years. Immigrants still do not have the opportunity to vote for any other election in Italy against a payment of at least €1 charged to cover organizational expenses. Poll stations were mainly managed on a voluntary basis. They were hosted mainly in squares, local party quarters, schools, and even restaurants, bars, campers, and a hairdresser. Some polling stations were also provided outside the country for Italians abroad. Most of the party leaders claimed a result of 1 million voters would be a good success for the election. The total count was in excess of 4,300,000. Political reactions. Most reactions on the center-left were comprehensively enthusiastic, especially because of the high number of participants. Clement Mastella, however, accused the organization of rigging the election and having pre-printed ballots in favor of Prodi. On the center-right, two main attitudes were held. Silvio Berlusconi said the primary elections are the only way they can win. Gianfranco Fini expressed respect for voters, but suggested, on the basis of Mastella's claims, that the results may have been rigged. Roberto Maroni from the Lega Nord said that the elections deserve respect in any case, but will not solve the center-left's internal contradictions. Roberto Castelli, Minister of Justice, stigmatized the elections as a perfect example of Soviet-style political campaign. There is no certification of the data purported by the center-left, and knowing their methods, they are certainly inflated. The Union of Christian and Center Democrats expressed the most positive judgments from the center-right, and Bruno Tabacci called for primary elections in the center-right too. Following tensions, between his party and Berlusconi, no longer felt to be a strong candidate. Controversies. Allegations of fraud by Mastella. Clement Mastella claimed, already on the election day, that too few ballots had been provided in areas where his party is stronger, and that several pre-marked voting papers, pre-marked with votes for Prodi, have been prepared in order to let him lose. No one other than Mastella backed up these claims inside the coalition, and material evidence was not presented. Murder of Francesco Fortugno. Francesco Fortugno, vice president of the Council of Calabria and member of the Daisy DL, was murdered on 16 October 2005 by two killers when he was waiting in line to vote in a polling station in Lockery. The act was assumed to have political significance since the murderers killed him on a political occasion and with dozens of witnesses. The administration Fortugno was a part of had previously removed many administrators, and some saw this murder as an act of retribution from the Ndrangheta against Agazio Loyero's administration. References